Good evening, everyone. It is a couple of minutes before 7. My name's Marty. I work at the Chelmsford Library, and I just wanted to say a quick hello and let people know how excited we are to have you all here, how excited we are to host Steve and hear about all of these amazing birds and just learn together on this Thursday evening. If you've been keeping an eye on our Chelmsford events calendar, we do have a really special event happening next week. It is our one book event in person at the library. We're having the author Ilian Wu come and speak about her book, Master, Slave, Husband, Wife. And it promises to be a really interesting event. So if you haven't signed up yet, please do. And with that being said, I'm just going to hand it over to Steve, and I can't wait to learn more about this amazing collection of birds we're going to see tonight.
Thank you so much, Marty, and thanks everyone for coming in for this presentation and discussion about Hawaiian birds. It's a topic I really like. I've had the opportunity to visit Hawaii a few times, and even as recently as this past October. So I'm happy to share this with you. I want to thank Marty and Jill Kenny from the Chelmsford Public Library and to the Friends of the Chelmsford Public Library for inviting me to give this presentation. This is one of a few now that I've given over the past few years on birds of the area, more of the local New England area, and now we're going to talk about Hawaiian birds. And we have a lot of birds to cover, so I want to get started relatively quickly. For the format of the presentation, first we're going to talk about some of the native Hawaiian birds. And by native, we mean birds that evolved in place or visit under natural conditions without any types of human assistance. So they call Hawaii their home or their stopover. And then second, we're going to talk about some non-native birds that are likely to be encountered. And my goal for the presentation is primarily to ground everyone in identification confidence. So when you go to Hawaii, whether you fly there or take a cruise ship and you visit the islands, or if you're out on a catamaran seeing the birds over the water, you'll have some idea or at least be able to make a good guess on what kind of birds you're seeing. I will ask some questions of the audience, so please try to become familiar with the chat box so I can get some feedback. And one of the first questions I'm going to ask is just kind of a yes or no question. I can't really read long answers. First question is, have you been to Hawaii, yes or no? So go ahead and type that into the chat box so I can get a feel for how many. And okay, good. So it looks like we have a lot of people who have been to Hawaii. Fantastic. And maybe even a couple from Hawaii. I think I saw that kind of answer as well. And if you haven't been to Hawaii, then this presentation will be perfect for you anyway, because now you will be prepared for some of the birds that you can encounter along the way. If you have questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box. Marty and I are trying to monitor the chat box. If the question is about what we're talking about at the time, we will try to field that question in line with the presentation. If your question is unrelated, it's fine, but hold unrelated questions until the end. And then we'll try to pick them up. We'll try to go through them all and try to answer them the best we can. So first, of course, I want to introduce this bird on the cover slide. And notice this is a goose. I think everybody can easily recognize this as a goose, and everyone from the mainland of North America is familiar with the Canada goose. And this bird looks markedly different than the Canada goose. It's actually a little smaller than the Canada goose also, but has this beautiful markings on the head and streaked neck. And this is actually the state bird for Hawaii, the Hawaiian goose, also called the nene. When we encounter birds that have native Hawaiian names, I will include those in parentheses also. The nene was a very endangered bird at one time, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has brought them into a recovery program that has been very successful. So now you can find nene on Hawaii, Maui, Kauai, possibly even Oahu, even though I have not seen them on Oahu myself. So go ahead and please type into the chat box if you have seen the nene before. So go ahead and type yes or no if this is a bird that you can count on your life list. Good. So there's a number of people who have seen the nene. It's much easier. And oh, okay, and here are some people who haven't, and that's fine. You'll catch up with that. It's much easier to see the nene now than it was in decades past. So we are grateful that the program is working, the recovery program. Here's a quick little geography lesson. We have south is at the bottom of this panel, and we've got, of course, the big island, which is called Hawaii, and we've got Maui and Molokai, Oahu, and Kauai. And these range from youngest on the bottom right. Hawaii, the biggest one, is the youngest of the islands. And as you go up towards the northwest, they get older and older and smaller because they become eroded over time. But the Hawaiian island chain actually extends well up past Kauai, all the way up to the Midway Atoll. And the last island in the Hawaiian island chain is the Kure Atoll. So many of the birds we're going to talk about are restricted to these main islands, but some of the seabirds actually have nesting activity on some of the what are called the windward islands of the Hawaiian island chain. So we'll talk about some of those too. But there's a little basic geography for all of the islands that we are covering. So we're going to start out with, as I mentioned, native birds, birds that you might say belong there. They didn't get there through human assistance. And this is actually one of my favorite birds in all of the world. There are a few different species of this type of bird, but it looks very, very prehistoric with these very sharp angles, very pointed wings and sharp bends, very forked tail. Can anybody guess what type of bird this is from the Hawaiian Islands? Even if you get it into the right family of birds, that'd be great. Yeah, very good, Martin and Joan. Yep, Marcia. Yep, Lelia. This is the frigate bird, and more specifically, this is the great frigate bird. And this is the predominant frigate bird of the tropical Pacific. If you're in the Caribbean, the frigate bird there is the magnificent frigate bird, predominantly. But an interesting point about the great frigate bird is it has the lowest wing loading of any other birds on the planet. And there are about 10,500 species of birds approximately on the planet, and this one has the lowest wing loading. So what is wing loading, you might ask? Wing loading is if you take the mass of the bird and you divide it by the wing area of the bird, you get a very small number. So that means the bird is very light, it has very low mass, and has lots of area. And this is a bird that is famous because they can spend many days and months in the air. They really come down to land for breeding purposes, but the rest of the time of year, for months, they will spend at sea, and they will swoop down to the sea surface and grab food from the sea surface, or they will chase other birds and cause them to regurgitate prey and steal other birds' food. So this is the great frigate bird. You can see this bird from, I think, any of the islands, mostly in the coastal regions, of course, usually flying quite high. But look for this forked tail and these pointed wings, and you'll see the frigate bird. Okay, how about this sharp-looking fellow? Very white with this super long white tail. Go ahead and put in the chat box if you want to guess or identify what species of bird this is. Good. So this is the white-tailed tropic bird, and it is immaculately white. And I'm trying to get the name to pop up. There we go. White-tailed tropic bird. Famous and can be identified by this very, very long white tail, tail streamer. And these birds can be seen readily on the big island of Hawaii, actually right around the volcano crater on in Kilauea National Park, or Volcano National Park. Yeah, that's what it's called. But they can also be seen readily in along some of the upper hills of Kauai, in the Wailua River drainage, and they nest in burrows up high on those cliffs. So the way you look for these birds is you just have to look up high, and it's this all white bird. And here in the east, we're familiar with birds called terns, T-E-R-N. And they have forked tails, but they're all white. And these birds are similar in shape, except they have this very long streamer tail. When flying out, though, I typically, when I see them flying, they're flying high, higher than we would think of terns flying in the sky. So you'll want to be on the lookout for them. Yeah, so Loretta has seen them in Bermuda also. And there are two other species of tropic birds. If you go to the Kilauea Point lighthouse on Kauai up near Princeville, you can find the red-tailed tropic bird, which is a different species. They're much rarer than the white-tailed, but there always seems to be one at the Kilauea Point lighthouse. In the Kilauea Point, we'll talk more about the Kilauea Lighthouse because it's a magnet for lots of different kinds of fantastic birds, including this one, which is the Laysan albatross. Okay, so the Hawaiian Islands are notable for having two species of albatross, but this is by far the most common one, the Laysan albatross, and they nest on golf courses on Kauai up in Princeville. So you can actually get very close to them. You can see them nesting. You can see them courting. Watch them walking around, and you can see them flying offshore. And it's quite magnificent. This wingspan is probably about 8 feet long from tip to tip, and they're just spectacular birds. And I do want to note here, there's something special about some of the Laysan albatross. I don't know if any of you have heard of Wisdom, but if you haven't, after this presentation, and you can make a note now to Google and look up Wisdom the albatross, because Wisdom is a female albatross who was first banded in 1956. So she is at least 73 years old. And actually, now she might have ticked over to 74 years old. She is the oldest known living wild bird, and she nests on Midway Atoll. And in her lifetime, she's laid over 50 to 60 eggs and fledged 30 chicks. So can you imagine? So now she's 73, and by last count, I think she did lay an egg with a mate that she has. And she returns every year to Midway Atoll to do that. And her band number is Z333. And she has worn out that band 6 times that's had to be replaced, which is quite remarkable. Wisdom has a Facebook page. I think you can find her on there too, which is kind of cute. So you can see those albatrosses, the red-tailed tropic bird, and you can see a ton of these fantastic birds nesting at the Kilauea Point lighthouse, which is a special kind of conservation area. There are some other petrels nesting there. So if any of you are interested in birds and you're going to Kauai, I want to recommend strongly that you visit. Oops, I hit a button. I'm going to just type it in here. That way you can copy and paste it into notes if you want. I think I'm spelling it correctly. Kilauea Point Lighthouse. But this is a must visit for bird watchers. Oops, now I got to get back on slide here. Okay, but there you will find many pairs. I want to say 40, maybe more pairs of this bird. Go ahead and type it in the chat box if you want to have a guess at this bird. Anyone? Okay, good. Thank you, Martin. For a minute there, I wasn't sure if I was still connected or not, but we're good. Yeah, this is the red-footed booby. Okay, the red-footed booby, and here's a pair that are resting in the pines. This photo was actually collected at Kilauea Point. Very nice. They're fun to look at. Now, if you're on a catamaran cruise or on a cruise ship, as you get close to the Hawaiian Islands, um, just about any of the Hawaiian Islands, but more commonly up towards the northwestern islands, you can find these boobies flying relatively low over the water. They tend to fly almost like pelicans that we're familiar with, the way they like to fly low over the water. Okay. Let's see. Look at this bird is so like, I don't know, it has so much charisma with the contrast between its pure whiteness and the black eye spot and the very dark bill. And I did mention just a moment ago the terns, because in the East Coast, where most of you are from, but certainly no matter which coast you might be on of North America, you're familiar with terns. And this is a tropical species of tern. It actually nests in Hawaii. And I'll tell you the name of this one. This is the white tern, coincidentally. It also has other names like fairy tern is another name for it. But this is a bird you want to look for if you're on the island of Oahu, and specifically if you're in Honolulu and near Waikiki. You can find this bird. It just looks like this bright white giant, or not giant, a bright white tern flying out over the water. And they will come in from the water into the city and fly in and around some of the high-rise skyscraper type buildings, and they will go into the city parks, and you can find them nesting in the city parks. So if you walk around Waikiki, downtown Honolulu, especially close to the water, that shore area, you might see them up in the trees. And the thing is, they are nesting. They don't come and land on trees just willy-nilly. They tend to do it because they're nesting there. And an interesting thing about the white tern is they do not build a nest at all. They will lay their egg, a single egg, in the crook or on the top of a branch of a tree, usually a thick branch, and they will incubate that egg, and it just sits there. And if that egg gets knocked or something, it could easily fall right out of the tree because there's no nest cup to contain it. So it's kind of an interesting and bizarre behavior, nesting behavior, since so many other birds build some kind of structure. Even if it's out of sand, they'll build some kind of cup shape to contain nests, and but the fairy tern or the white tern does not. So for those of you, has any of you seen the white tern? Go ahead, and if you have, type which island you've seen it on. I'm interested to know if people have seen the white tern off of the island of Oahu, because I have never seen it elsewhere. So we'll see if we get any responses of anyone seeing white tern elsewhere. Okay, actually getting few responses, just a few, and Oahu looks like the right place. So if you want to check this bird off of your life list, you definitely want to go there to see it. Okay, so we're going to continue on. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong key. Sorry, I'm getting back into this. You might recognize this bird because we have this species on the North American continent. North American continent, this is the black-necked stilt. And in Hawaii, it's called the Hawaiian stilt. Okay. And this bird is found in a variety of wet areas along shorelines and marshy places where the rivers meet the ocean and things like that. So this is the black-necked stilt. It's unmistakable because of its exceptionally long legs and this black and white pattern, but they're very handsome. I've seen these in a number of places on Maui and Hawaii. I recall if I've seen it on Hawaii or not, but certainly Maui and Hawaii. That's the Hawaiian stilt. Now, this bird I love. It doesn't look like much, but it's a lot of fun. So many of us visit Hawaii on some sort of vacation. We're not all blessed or gifted to be able to have called Hawaii home. Although I think some of you on the presentation on the Zoom tonight have called Hawaii home. But if you're there on vacation, we often go kind of in the winter months or late fall to early spring. Well, that's when birds have migrated out of North America. And this particular bird is one of those migrants. It breeds up in northern Canada and migrates down the Pacific coast of California and actually across the ocean too, to some of the old world sites in Australia and some of the Pacific Islands. But this bird is also called, and I see my name doesn't have it there. It's the Pacific golden plover. In Hawaiian, it's the kolea. Kolea. And they can be found, they're very numerous. They can be in city parks, they can be on coastal grasslands, just about anywhere where it's flat. They can be on the lava rocks that are immediately adjoining where the land meets the sea. And very kind of, they have this golden color interfused on their back feathers and kind of have this yellowish tint overall. This is a bird in the plover family. It looks similar to a plover. In North America, you might think it's somewhat similar to a killdeer, if you're familiar with that very common bird. But this is the Pacific golden plover. And it's remarkable that these birds migrate from North America and then regularly make it to Hawaii, which is like a needle in a haystack in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that they're able to make that trip so successfully. So that's a bird to look out for. Now, it will not be there if you're visiting in the summer months because it has migrated up to Canada. But this should definitely be on your watch list or your target list if you're looking for birds from November to March. Similarly, this is another bird from that migrates to the Hawaiian Islands. It's a relative. This is more of a sandpiper than a plover. And this is called the wandering tattler. It's a close relative of things like the greater yellowlegs and lesser yellowlegs um, of North America, if you're familiar with those types of sandpipers. But notice it's very dark. It's a shade of gray, but it's dark shade of gray, and has these bright yellow legs, similar to our yellow legs. And they feed on these lava rocks right at the water's edge. These lava rocks are a type of rock called basalt. I'm going to type that in just in case sometimes you might not hear my words correctly over Zoom. So the lava rock type is called basalt, and it's very dark. As basalt ages and gets in contact with um, oxygen, it forms iron oxide or rust. So the older islands like Kauai, that's why those rocks are more red. But the younger island like Hawaii is more black. And these birds blend in very nicely with that. And you can find wandering tattlers throughout the Hawaiian Islands. And if you go to some of the other islands of the South Pacific, over more towards the west, like Tahiti and Fiji, you'll find another tattler called the gray tattler, which is a relative of the wandering tattler. But it's fun to look for these. Again, this is a bird of the winter season because they're breeding up in the Arctic region during the during the breeding season. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about, so I talked a lot about water birds so far, and now we're going to talk about some of the songbirds that are native to Hawaii. And there's a few special stories about some of these. I'm going to cover mostly examples that are common that you have a chance to see. And one of them is this fellow. And if you've seen this, go ahead and type yes. I won't ask you to spell it because I'm gonna spell it for you. It's Elepaio. Elepaio. I don't know if my pronunciation is very good, but Marcia has seen this bird, and we'll see if a few others come up. This is one of the it's a bird in a group called the monarch flycatchers. So it's a very small flycatcher, but you can notice it's very colorful with the contrasting whites, blacks, and brownish, rusty colored feathers. So that makes it very distinguished to find. It shows up pretty well. Elepaio, one of the more common native birds. Now, a quick comment about these native songbirds. If you want to see these, you really have to get up, you have to get into native forest. One of the things to realize about Hawaii over time is, since its development over time and modernization, the lowland areas have all been developed for agriculture and housing for people. It's all very people-centric down on the coastal areas. And in the middle of each one of these islands is an old volcano or several volcanoes. That's what formed the island. So the middle is a volcanic peak, and there are the remnants of the old native forests that existed on Hawaii and have evolved on Hawaii. And that's where almost all of the native birds are, if you want to try to see native land birds. Down below in those human habitated areas are introduced birds from all over the world. And we're going to show you some of those so you can identify those too. But I just want to tell you, to see these birds we're talking about now, typically if you're on vacation, you're going to need a rental car to take you up and find some of that native vegetation, and you have to get out and do some nature walks. And if you can, it's a good idea to hire a guide to go ahead and help you find some of them. But there's a special group, the remaining songbirds that I'm gonna, oh, I see, I'm gonna wait. I just had a notice that my internet connection was unstable. So can someone type in the chat box? Can you hear me okay now? Okay, thank you, Liz. Okay. So Hawaii are all very closely related and represent what was probably a single colonization from Asia of a stock of birds and immigrated to one of the Hawaiian Islands, probably one of the older ones, Hawaii or something like. And there they lived and they survived and they reproduced and they speciated into a number of different species that don't even look like, at least superficially, the original finches from which they would have derived. Okay, so these are called the Hawaiian honey creepers, and these are the examples I'm going to show you next. And I want you to pay attention to the diversity of shapes. You can look at the bill sizes, their body sizes, their colorations, and how very different they are. And I want to remind everyone what the finch family looks like. When we think of finches, think of things like house finch and purple finch, very deep, thick bills, heavy for crushing seeds and shelling seeds. Now, of course, those are North American birds. The original finches for these came from Asia, but it's a similar body plan. Okay, but this one is let me see if I can get that working. The Hawaii Amakihi. Okay, the Hawaii Amakihi. Notice it's got a kind of a delicate curved bill. Much of the bill shapes for many of these birds are adapted for different flowers. Okay, probing into flowers for nectar. And then the other thing that goes in for flowers for nectars are insects. So inside flowers is a great place to forage for insects, not just nectar. I'm seeing some notes that I'm freezing up on and off. I hope it's not too bad. If anybody wants me to go back and repeat something, just go ahead and put that in there. This is another one of the very common Hawaiian honey. Having trouble with my cursor. A papane. Very red. These birds are all finch-sized birds. They're relatively small. If you want to get good looks at these, of course, you're going to want binoculars as a tool to see them. Otherwise, you'll just see these little birds darting around. Typically, if you're in a patch of native forest and you see these little birds, it's more likely to be one of these native bird introduced species. So this is always like finding these native birds is always extra exciting, because one of the things I have to tell you is scientists have documented 51 or about 51 species of different species of Hawaiian honey creepers that have evolved on the Hawaiian Islands. And today, over half of them are already extinct. Okay. Over half. So that's over 26. And many of them today are even critically endangered. Some of them haven't been seen for decades. They haven't been listed as extinct yet. There might be some evidence that maybe they still exist. There are expeditions, scientific expeditions that go out into the native forest trying to find some of these birds so that they can manage and support recovery and things like that. And look at the sharply curved thin bill here on this fine looking fellow. This is the Akiapola owl. Whenever you see one of these backward apostrophes in the middle of the word, it means pause and then continue. So Akiapola owl. Okay, that's called a kina, and it's a glottal stop, or okina, the okina. Here's a crested honey creeper. He's kind of looking away from us, and you see he's got this little white tufts of feathers just above the upper bill. You can see his eye here. He's looking away, and he's got this red fiery crest feathers here, and he's feeding on some of the native Hawaiian plants. And I think one's found on Maui. I just saw that I froze again. So many of the Hawaiian honeycreepers are what's called endemic. They only live on one of the islands, or maybe one or a few of the islands. They certainly only live on the Hawaiian Islands. They do not occur anywhere. So there's a high degree of endemism. This is the Maui parrotbill. Notice its bill looks much thicker, and it's got this overbite, and it can position a seed in there and then drive that lower bill up in underneath to shell the seed. So that's the Maui parrotbill. Another one of the native birds, only found on Maui. And then the last, this bird is truly iconic for Hawaii. You will find this on a lot of the signs, marketing materials for Hawaii, just because it's so beautiful and rich with its redness, red sickle bill and black wings. And this bird is the eevi. I'm going to show you that. Eevi. So the I gives a long E sound, then you stop, and then eevi. W is pronounced as a V in Hawaiian. Okay, if you said eewi, nobody would correct you, but it is correctly the eev. So very good. So that's going to be the end of the native birds of Hawaii. And now we're going to talk about the non-native birds. These are the common birds that if you went on vacation, you stepped off your cruise ship, the birds you would identify around your hotel or something like that on a visit. And people who have not been to Hawaii are often, it's noteworthy that you see these birds kind of everywhere, especially on like Maui and Kauai and some of the other places. And who can identify this one? Go ahead and type in the chat box what this bird is. Oh, good, Marcia. Good, Martin. Very good. This is the red jungle fowl. Red jungle fowl. We might commonly call this the chicken. This is actually the wild type bird from where all of the chickens in the world are derived or domesticated, from the stock of red jungle fowl, which is originally from Southeast Asia. Okay, but look how handsome the colors are on this bird. This is how chickens looked like prior to domestication. And they are actually stunningly beautiful. And you can see them walking around cities. They don't even have to be in a park. They can be right along the street. They can be anywhere. So chickens are very, very common in Hawaii. Here's a bird you might find familiar. And actually, I have to do some research. Maybe this bird is not introduced. I have to look that up. This bird easily could have flown to Hawaii on its own. It's famous for having immigrated. It was originally in Africa and then migrated to South America and has bred and now breeds all the way up into North America, as far north as places like Pennsylvania. This is the cattle egret. Very good. It's noteworthy is it's one of the white egrets, but it's got lots of rusty orange on it. It's often found away from water. Here in the Northeast, we're used to things like great egret and cattle egret. I'm sorry, and snowy egret, um, which are near water, nesting near water, and actually in coastal areas. Cattle egret is more of a dry habitat. They like to keep their feet dry, or at least drier, in fields, and they will follow along cows or tractors that are farming fields and eat the insects that get disturbed by grazing animals or farm equipment, things like that. So that's the cattle egret, and they are on Hawaii. Okay, thank you, Liz. Liz just looked that up, and the cattle egret was introduced in 1959. Okay, very often people introduce birds in particular because they like them. They have some aesthetic value, and things like that. And sometimes they take them as pets and they escape. And then when they escape, they sometimes breed. But these birds here, in the dove family, thank you, Gene. These birds in the dove family have been distributed all over the world. You can find doves in particular because they're so beautiful and peaceful. People like to keep them in cultivation, and have them in aviaries, and sometimes they get out. So this is the spotted dove. So Joan, this is not the same bird as our city pigeon. It looks similar because pigeons and doves are very similar, and they're all kind of closely related. But this in particular one gets its name for the spotted band around on its hind neck area. It's smaller than a pigeon, smaller than the city pigeon or rock dove. Those are all synonyms for our pigeons. But I don't think you saw this one in Boston Common, but they do make it into introduced areas, and maybe it's possible that you did. I don't want to say definitively you didn't. They are expanding their range, but I think this is mostly tropical. Here's another one that's been introduced to Hawaii. Notice the many stripes, almost like a zebra, and the bluish face is kind of noteworthy on these birds. This one is much smaller than the spotted dove we just saw, and is probably about half the size of a mourning dove. And I mentioned mourning dove because you're all familiar with it, but also because mourning doves are introduced to Hawaii. Many of the birds that we have in our area, I did not show in this presentation because I wanted to focus on birds you are unlikely to have experience with. But mourning doves are a bird commonly also in Hawaii. This is the zebra dove, and it's nice because sometimes birds are difficult to remember, and fortunately one matches with its pattern. Makes it a, I'm going to pause. And the pattern matches its name, which is helpful. Okay, I'm going to advance the slide. This may be a little, it's the linear size of a blue jay. It's not as heavy or hefty as a blue jay, but from the tip of the bill to the tip of the tail, it's as the size of a blue jay or larger, and has this very notable good Marcia, very notable white rump patch. Okay, this is a bird that originated from I think in India, certainly in Asia, and has been introduced. And this is the white rumped shama, and I know it from experience that it's common on Kauai, but I think it's also common on some of the other Hawaiian Islands, but I don't think the Big Island is one of them, because I've been to the Big Island quite a few times and I have not seen a shama, white rump shama there. Okay, but that big white rump patch is noteworthy, and fortunately it matches with its name also. So if you're going looking for it, you can be pretty sure you've got a good identification on it. Okay, we're coming down towards the end of some of our birds here, and we'll have time for some questions after. Notice that this bird is shaped. Oh, I just gave it away. This is the red-vented bulbul. Okay, it is not a cardinal, and it is not a cardinal relative. It's not closely related to the cardinals. Okay, but it does have this kind of crest similarity, and it has some shape similarities. The bills are very different, though, between the cardinals, which is a type of finch, and the bulbul. This is the red-vented bulbul, and the vent refers to this lower region near the cloaca, which is where the excrement comes out from the bird, the cloaca. You might call that the butt. But they have these red feathers in that area, giving it its name, the red-vented bulbul. And these birds are quite common in the parks and areas where humans are. It's one of the more common introduced birds where people are. So abundant and noteworthy, unmistakable. You probably can't go to Hawaii and not see this bird. And beautiful, beautiful yellow, bright yellow bill, and this yellow kind of comma here behind the eye on an otherwise black and bronze colored bird. Bright yellow legs, so there's lots of fantastic contrast. Very good, Lisa. That is correct. This is the common myna. And the common myna is actually one of the most widely distributed birds, thanks to humans, in the world. It occurs on all of the, almost, I can't speak for all, but I want to say nearly all of the Pacific Islands, and probably islands in the Indian Ocean and places like that as well. Introduced to many of those places, common myna. Especially if you're looking for birds, because they're so abundant, and they steal your attention, distract you from looking for other good birds trying to find and see. Now, these birds are very, very small, and they occur in gangs. They're very gregarious, many of them flying around together, especially when in the non-breeding season. Okay, you'll find flocks, numerous, maybe upward of 20 of these little guys, and they're buzzing. They make these buzzy vocalizations, and they're noteworthy for this big, bold eye ring. Okay, notice how thick that is. There's a lot of birds in the world that have eye rings and can be developed. Thank you, Teresa. Eye rings that can be used to identify the birds, but this is thicker than most. And even without binoculars, you can, if you get reasonably close to these birds, you can see that white eye ring. And then when you do, you know you've got the warbling white eye. And these birds originated from Asia. And they actually also, so this is that was the saffron finch. Here with the big white cheeks, we have the Java finch. I'm sorry, the Java sparrow. Very prominent, big white, pinkish bill on a white cheek. You can find these birds in many of the city parks. And then our last bird fits perfectly in profile with our northern cardinal, but notice the gray body with white flanks and white belly. This is the red-crested cardinal. So its name fits appropriately for this bird. So that's the red-crested cardinal. So mahalo. Mahalo means thank you. I apologize for disruptions. It's I really don't know the extent of it from my end. I couldn't see that. So, but at this point, if you want to type in questions about the presentation or Hawaiian birds, happy to handle those. Can you hear me? Red-crested cardinal was the last bird, Diane. Sorry about that. Um, I hope the audio wasn't too bad. Thank you, Martin, for your support and your comment. Um, I hope everybody learned a little something and feels like if they went to Hawaii, they have a little bit of an idea of what birds could be encountered. I do want to say, if you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you did, please let Marty or Jill Kenny at the Chelmsford Public Library know. That helps us to figure out what kind of presentations people like and what we can do more of. Okay, so we'll go back now and try and pick up some of the questions too. Thanks, everyone. I saw a question fly by. Oh, do most of these birds stay on the islands or do they migrate? So, Larry, uh, the birds that are introduced are resident, meaning they stay. They do not migrate. The birds that I showed at the beginning of the presentation, especially those water type birds, those mostly all of them migrate. Not all of them. The blackneck stilt or with the Hawaiian stilt that I presented, it does not migrate. But the sandpipers, the tattler, and the plover, those do migrate, as do the albatrosses. The albatrosses migrate away when they're not breeding. They head out to the open ocean and spend their non-breeding periods out there. So, oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the pictures too. Looking for, let's see if there's any. Okay, thanks, Lee. Thanks for the comments. Thank you, Amy. And yeah, it is a great way to spend the evening. I appreciate it. One of my most fun things to do is to talk about birds. Rebecca says she had birds probably from a trip to Hawaii and now she knows what they are. So glad to help in that way. It's a lot of fun to try and find these birds and identify them. And it can be a challenge too. Certainly can be a challenge. So thank you all very much. And please have a great and wonderful. Oh, here's a question from Mary. Let's see. Let me view. This came up. How do I do that? Oh, okay. So we have some hands coming up. Let's see if we can do this. If the band, if it will support it. Wait a minute. Let's try this. Oh, let's see. Nancy, can you talk?
Yes. What was the bird before the last one? That picture went really fast.
Yeah, sorry. I wasn't sure if people were hearing me. So let me see. Do you mean this one?
Oh, it says Java Sparrow. Is that the one right before the last one?
Yes,
Okay.
because this was the last one, the red
Yeah, that was the
crested.
last one, the right before. That was quite an interesting bird.
Yeah, look how thick that bill is. And
Wow,
they're from the
yeah.
island of Java.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
never that interested in birds, but
Thanks for your question.
I got a bird feeder, and now I'm more interested in birds. And I live in Concord, Massachusetts, and there's a Great Meadows Wildlife Area where people go bird watching.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. John has a question. Best to see land birds. John, I think are you thinking what is the best place to go or to see land birds? And if I'm interpreting your question correctly, John, I think there's a couple really good places. The Big Island on Hawaii and Volcano National Park is a great place. You want to get up in some of the back roads and you want to drive up the mountain. Actually, on whatever island you're on, you want to go up into those native forests, which are always up the mountain slopes. That's where you want to go for those. Okay. Let's see if I can find some more questions here. I know, oh, okay. Can you talk more about the chickens? They are very prolific on some of the islands. Yeah, legally they must be protected. That is, you can't go out and hunt chickens. I see my internet connection just went unstable. So my internet connection just went unstable again, but I'll answer that. I think the chickens are protected. You cannot go out and just hunt them or kill them and put them in a pot or anything like that. They are prolific. Is the crested honey creeper a large bird? Robin asked. No, it's actually very small. It's probably about the size of a sparrow, maybe a little bigger than a sparrow. Good question. Wasn't it beautiful though? And Robin, I've never seen a crested honey creeper. The next time I go back to Maui, I'm going to look for that guy. So thank you all very much. I think I'll end the presentation there. And Marty, I don't know if you're still on or not, if you want to take it over. But thanks again to everyone for coming. And hopefully I'll get to see you again at a future presentation. Thank you.